So do you have anybody that your war stories, or what didn't work out for you, some mistakes you learned? That you wish you never learned, I guess.
Where to start? Uh, yeah, I mean, I'd say that one of them, probably like one of my, I invested in a commercial auto insurer, and that was, I've invested in an insurance company before, but their accounting is very, very weird. A ton of assumptions. You have to like understand actuaries,
Right.
understand where these assumptions come from. But they were like profitable on a financial accounting basis. But then like every year, like every 2 years later, they would come and have some huge write-off because their assumptions were wrong, and they ended up having like more insurance claims than they were expecting. Um, and so I got into it after like they've done two of these, and I was like, okay, well, hopefully they've learned their lessons, they've adjusted enough, and now it's done. I mean, it ended up going pretty much to zero after that. Like they did another huge one where they were going to lose their insurance licenses and such. So they kept blaming like distracted driving, like the fact that like cell phones, like more people are texting while driving, starting in 2018, and there's all these claims that are like dragging on much longer. Um, Again, I mean, kind of makes sense. But again, at some point, you would think that would be like, okay, like this is how we should price, and this is how we've taken enough of these assumed losses going forward. Um, but yeah, that I'd say like kind of kind of worries me a little bit about investing in insurance. Um, but I think it's more understanding like truly what the real liabilities can be.
Right.
So I mean, you hear war stories, and you're like, okay, I'll never do this again because it's happened to me before. And I think it's easy to do that. I think it's harder to be like, well, what did I mess up on? How do I change it? So like, I'll do that, but I'll look out for something which I did, maybe I wasn't looking out for, right? So that because I'm sure a lot of other investors who invested in that will probably also like, hey, like I'm not going to invest in an insurance company again, or something of that sort. And I think to me, that's like a little bit closed-minded to think. Like I felt like that probably for like 2 years after that, and
Right.
then more recently, I'm like, you know what? I need to not put myself in a box on these things completely. And I need to just be, it's fine saying no, and I'm not going to do something. And
Mm.
I do have a list. I do like a lot of times in my process of when I find a company that seems interesting, like if it becomes too hard, like I just put it in the too hard bucket. And I'm like, you know what?
Right.
It's not worth it. Um, and maybe I should do that with insurance. But again, like sometimes, like I can't say I'll always do that, right? Like I think that's a little bit close-minded. If I find a press release where they talk about, you know, uh, buying back shares, or like what you saw with Mojo, like
That's easy.
it
Well, I
was
know, like, well, there's a hurricane coming here to Puerto Rico and maybe Florida. So if you own any stock, any insurance in that area, be careful. It might be a 4 or 5.
yeah, but again, but typically like that's priced in, right? And like, I mean, I don't know the I see the headlines of it, so I haven't followed it very closely, but I mean, the insurance market's going crazy right now, right? Like,
Right. They
if
are.
you
Yeah.
can get in Florida, or like if you like, are your premiums going up like 100%?
Oh, it's ridiculous, man. Because yeah, that's why they're making money now. Is big. You have to get insurance to get a mortgage, first of all, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I know if you're on the beach or anything there. So yeah, they've adjusted, and they're basically saying no to high risk too. It's not easy to get them to get it. So I guess they're adjusting their revenue and their pricing with that, with the risk exposure.